Oh, yes.
Welcome back, everyone. Today I am finally bringing you the long-awaited retrospective on the second wave of Transformers War for Cybertron Earthrise. I never imagined I'd be doing this video as late October, but here we are. The Rona's done a number on a lot of things, including the toy industry, so it took this long to actually get the second wave of toys, as you know, the next toy line is just right around the corner. So it is what it is. On the plus side, that means wave 3 retrospective isn't too far away. And if you saw the retrospective I did for the previous wave of Earthrise, you kind of know how this is going to go. I'm going to do a synopsis of all the figures in the wave, going from smallest size class to the largest. Based on some feedback I got in the Wave 1 review, I promise this will be a lot more dynamic and won't just be a still screen of this group shot the whole time. And then once we've had our recap of all the individual figures, I'll give my thoughts on the wave itself, what I liked about it, what I didn't like, probably throw in some kind of speculation there. And then lastly, I'll pose the question of what you all thought of this wave, because I'm just one person and my opinions are entirely subjective, so a better barometer of how good this wave was to hear from multiple people. And with all that established, let's get started. So our second wave of Earthrise encompasses all of the standard size classes, from Battlemaster to Micromaster to Deluxe to Voyager to Leader. The Commander class Skylynx and the Titan class Scorponok were released during this wave's distribution, as spread out as that was, but they're not technically part of Wave 2, so they won't be included here. However, expect to see them in my final line-wide Earthrise retrospective. I'm going to need a whole new setup to fit Scorponok in there. And this wave, admittedly, is a little bit skimpier than Wave 1. You only get one new Voyager class toy and one new Leader class toy. Though for the Wave 1 leaders, Astro Train might not really count for you if you picked him up in Siege, because in that case, he's really not new. So the quick breakdown for our Battlemasters, you have the Autobot Rung, which is the first ever toy representation of that IDW Comics original character. You have the Quintesson Line Slitherfang. And then for your Micromaster teams, you have your Astro Squad, which is Autobots, and then the Decepticon Racetrack Patrol. For your Deluxes, you have the Autobots Smokescreen and RC. You have a Quintesson aligned Alicon here in the middle, and then you have the Decepticon Modulator Airwave. For the Voyager Wave, we only got one new figure, and that's the Decepticon Snapdragon. And then lastly, the Leader Wave, we have either the Decepticon or Mercenary, depending if you're going by the packaging or the instructions, Double Dealer. Who, truth be told, the Mercenary designation fits him better because he can swap between Autobot and Decepticon allegiances. Right now we're going to look at each of the size classes, starting with our Battlemasters here. Okay, so our two Battlemasters, again, you have the re-released Rung from Siege, or maybe early released Rung from Earthrise. Not really sure. I think it was designed for Earthrise. I don't know. Hard to say, because all the other Earthrise guys are ramps, right? Rung, despite being a very solid toy, does have the unfortunate distinction amongst the weapon mode Battlemasters of having nowhere to store his blast effects, as cool as they are, in his robot or main mode. So it's something that's kind of a shame, but not the biggest loss. I keep him displayed in weapon mode anyway. And he also has the distinction of, out of all those Target Master type Battlemasters, of not being able to have his weapon removed from his back. It's pinned in there rather than just attached with little pegs. So he does kind of lack in playability compared to the others, but he is a very, very solid little sculpt. And again, just a really neat nod to a much lesser known character in the greater lore. Then Slitherfang is just very unique in that its main mode is a snake. Not the alt mode, but it just turns into a snake. I think the intention for the Slitherfangs is that they're supposed to be more of a species than an individual character. It's just kind of the vibe I get from them, that they're just another group of minions for the Quintessons. So it makes sense seeing a bunch of them laid out, forming pathways in some sort of Quintesson stronghold. And, he does have the very boring alt mode of a ramp/shield, which is something all but Rung embodies in the Earthrise Battlemasters. Does have a really cool blast effect though. Do dig that. All the shield guys have like an explosion type blast effect that you can plug onto their flat sides to simulate some sort of ground fire. And overall, it's a fun wave. Yeah, personally, I would have preferred getting something besides Rung because I already picked him up the first time, but I know a lot of people were happy to get a second chance at him, so I can't hate on that too much. Moving on, we now have our Micromaster patrols. On the left, you have your Astro Squad. On the right, you have your Racetrack Patrol. So the Astro Squad is the Autobot team, and they consist of Fuser and Blastmaster. They are classic Micromaster combiners updated for new modern sensibilities. They do retain their gimmick of combining into a space shuttle mode. Unlike the Siege/Earthrise Battle Squad, they can't form individual vehicle modes. They didn't manage to work that feature in, which I think is a shame. But if they couldn't do it without compromising the robot modes and the combined mode, then it's probably for the best. Your Racetrack Patrol consists of Roller Force and Groundhog, and they are much more your standard car mode Micromasters. They use pretty much the same transformation scheme as all the other car mode guys. So to me, they were the least exciting. But that doesn't make them bad toys by any means. They are actually very solid little molds. Yeah, they still have the garbage 2-car pile-up weapon mode that I just choose to ignore, and think it's just for the best if we all just pretend those aren't there. But there's still nothing wrong with them. For their two classic modes, Vehicle and Robot, they knock it out of the park. They are colored quite differently than their G1 counterparts. For some reason, they decided to really alter the color palettes on these guys. But the overall look is still the same. And excitingly, we just found out that these two are going to have the special honor of actually having their team of 4, their classic team, completed within Earthrise via the Galactic Odyssey Micron pack. It's going to include their 2 teammates, including the Micromaster Barricade, now renamed Runner, as one, a way to distinguish him from the Deluxe class Decepticon Barricade, but also an homage to a name given to the character in the Dreamwave comics that he held prior to becoming the Decepticon known as Barricade. So really clever workaround. I didn't think they were ever going to release a Micromaster Barricade because of the name conflict, but they reached deep into the lore. I didn't even know about the Runner thing. I found that out after the fact. They gave him a new name, and now we can have both Barricades existing simultaneously, so that's very cool. But random factoid aside, yeah, this, I think, was a more exciting Micromaster wave than the first wave. The first wave Micromasters, I really wasn't taken with. They were really boring to me. This wave was a lot more exciting, a lot more fun to play with. Now we have the meat of the wave, our 4-figure Deluxe class, and they consist of, again, Smokescreen, RC, the Quintesson Alicon, and the Decepticon Airwave. Our 2 Autobots here are probably the biggest mixed bag because the Smokescreen toy I consider near flawless, at least as far as molding goes. Could have used a lot more paint, more color variation on his weapons, but the mold is fantastic and worked really well for Blue Streak, who I reviewed just previously. RC, on the other hand, I felt was just really not a great take on a transforming RC toy. I felt that Thrilling 30 did it better, but I will say, now having had it for a while and getting a chance to really look it over, it makes for a fantastic display piece. She looks absolutely awesome, just mounted up on her little, hoverboard / car kibble. You get some really nice dynamic poses out of her. So for an action figure, she's actually really, really good. Just as a transformer, really weak. And again, RC is just a product of her design, right? The way she was designed, instead of them taking a toy model and making it a cartoon, they're taking a cartoon model and making it a toy. And unfortunately, that drawing just really doesn't translate well to reality. In fact, they just showed the Ken Christensen concept art of RC, and it was literally the cartoon model. It's like, Ken, you're not helping these poor designers out at all. Like, the drawing didn't have a backpack or anything. So, sometimes you just got to make compromises. And normally they try to find a way to get all of her kibble to fold up on her back. This time they said, like, you know what, let's just take it off. So different strokes for different folks, I guess. You might like this approach more than the try to integrate everything approach. That's entirely up to you. But she does look fantastic. As far as her coloring, the biggest thing that bothers me is just the lack of paint on her face. It really should have been just like a light pink or something. Make it stand out a lot more from the helmet, but oh well. What's done is done, right? Our Alicon here, he was probably the biggest surprise when they were revealing the second wave, because how many people ever thought we were going to get an Alicon toy? Right? We were lucky enough to get Gnaw in the first place, and up until now, Alicon has been strictly in the domain of third-party, unofficial companies. So just the fact that this toy exists makes me happy that this wave exists. Now again, the Alicon has issues. During his review, I mentioned how much the arm kibble thing bothered me. Now in robot mode, with the little alligator arms hanging off, it's not as bad, but when he's in his beast mode and you just have his robot arms just hanging out on the side there, it's just such an absolute eyesore. But if you can get past that, everything else about him is pretty fantastic. The molded details, the paint, all that stuff, it's just really, really good. It looks just like the cartoon, too. And then Airwave. Now, he's a somewhat original character. He's original as far as being an entity, a robot goes. But, of course, he is a remake of the Micromaster base that came with the Micromaster Airwave. I know, it's confusing, right? Now, he's one of the figures I've most fervently been waiting on. Not because he's the most exciting toy, but because he keeps getting shown off in the instructions and packaging of other figures on, displaying his connectivity or his ability to interact with Micromasters. So they kept putting it in our faces like Airwave, 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 but he wouldn't come out. And the wave just kept getting delayed and delayed and delayed. So, man, I was so happy when I finally managed to snag one. And yeah, he's one of only 2 actual modulator molds in Earthrise. You get 4 modulators, 2 molds between them. The other one being the Ironworks mold. Which, again, I think is a huge shame. We're only getting 2 molds for all different modulators, but, at least we're getting them, I guess. He is getting redecoed into Hot House, though I think I'm going to like Hot House a lot less than Airwave, because Hot House is basically just an airport that says Firehouse on it, or Fire Station. But, for the Airwave mold itself, it's really cool. I love the very robotic motif of this guy. Like, he looks more like your traditional 1950s sci-fi robot than he does a sentient mechanical life form, which works well because these modulators are apparently supposed to be some sort of drones anyway. And I could definitely see people army building with him because he just looks like something you would make an army out of. So overall, I think the Deluxe assortment is just the highlight of the second wave. Got a lot of really either well done or really interesting figures, and to me it was just a bit more exciting than Wave 1. Next up we have our poor lonely little Voyager class toy, and this is the Headmaster Snapdragon, Headmaster / Triple Changer, and he shares that distinction with the other Decepticon Ape Face who was released in Siege. Now, one of the biggest contentions I have with those two as a pair is that they use very different colored plastics for their whitish, grayish plastic color. So that's in no way an insult to Snapdragon here, because he actually, in my opinion, has the superior plastic color. I really hate that weird pearly white plastic they use for Ape Face, and I think that feeling is pretty universal. Now, for some reason, a lot of people don't like the Snapdragon toy, and I don't understand it, because I think he does everything he's supposed to do very, very well. He's meant to be an update to the original toy, and I think he does that with pretty flying colors. The only real change they made to him functionally was just the way his Headmaster / Titanmaster works. Instead of the whole thing just forming the dragon head when you turn on its side, you actually have a dragon head that is tucked away right now. But you get like a separate piece that forms the top of the dragon head, which makes for a much better looking dragon head. And then this Headmaster just tucks up inside with the lower legs becoming the dragon's lower jaw. So I think overall it works better anyway. And then, the robot mode is pretty solid. Nothing exciting, kind of plain looking, but, full posability, does everything it's supposed to, no real tolerance issues. The dragon mode is pretty good too. It's a little blocky looking, but he is a triple changer. And then to me, the highlight is the jet mode or spaceship type mode. That just felt like an absolutely perfect update to the toy. So yeah, I don't think this figure deserves all the hate it gets. I thought it was absolutely great. And honestly, it's kind of a shame that Ape-Face didn't live up to being as well made as this guy. And it does make you wonder, were these two initially designed during Titan's Return, or during Siege, or Earthrise, or, what have you? I don't know. I don't know if we'll ever know. I'm sure, obviously, they had to at least have been in the concept stage or something during Titan's Return, right? There's no way they didn't at least consider these dudes during a line all about Headmasters. But as far as how far into the design they actually got until the War for Cybertron trilogy, who knows? Who knows? Obviously, some things were updated and changed, right? Like the surface detailing, the posability. They are on that new level that War for Cybertron brought. But it does make you wonder exactly how long these two have been in the queue. And lastly, we see our leader class figure, Double Dealer. And as I said before, his actual allegiance or factional status is kind of unknown. His box lists him as a Decepticon, though that might have just been for easy branding. The toy himself is actually considered a mercenary because he can freely switch between Autobot and Decepticon allegiances. And this toy, like Snapdragon, is just a really nice update to the classic figure. He hits all the major beats of the classic toy, while still putting a bit of a spin on it, kind of like Snapdragon did. In his case, the original Double Dealer had his faction depend on which mode he was in. Originally, his vehicle mode was neutral, his bird mode was the Decepticon form, and then the robot mode was purely an Autobot form. And the bird and Decepticon modes were activated by attaching his two Powermaster partners, which you can buy updates for from the Generation Selects line. In fact, I don't know if they're still available, but last I saw, they actually had a restock on these, so if you haven't picked them up yet, I would. Now, this toy is not bound by any such limits. In fact, he doesn't even come with the Powermasters. You have to buy those separately, just for effect, really. You can completely use this figure as a standalone toy and do all the transforming and everything you need to do. However, they did design him to interact with these Selects Powermasters. And again, these toys really are just retools of Soundwave's cassette characters. Now, they can interact via the standard ways of just plugging their little 5mm peg into different ports on his body to act as shields. But they engineered this, where you can open his chest up, plug one of these bad boys in there. Let's go ahead and use the Decepticon one. Flip it around and have it displayed like this. Now, you might be wondering, why do I have the peg sticking out? Well, this is something that somebody pointed out to me after I'd done my review for the character. I did notice during the review that his little abdominal engine block thing here is removable. It's actually just on a little 5mm peg. It comes off like that. And, I was speculating as to why that was, why they made it that way, if it was just an easy design choice or what. Well, somebody pointed out you can use those pegs to attach it. Let's see. It'll look nice. Do I have this upside down? Might have this upside down. I don't know. That looks better. All right. And that better emulates the whole Powermaster feature of the original toys, right? Because Powermasters turn into essentially engines for their larger partners. So, yeah, really, really neat homage to the original figure. Now, this toy, for all of its neat little features, whether it's the Powermaster interactivity, the swappable faction symbols that you can see here on the shoulders, there's the Autobot one, it does have a lot of issues, right? QC on this is not good. The arms are very weak. He can't even hold his cannon up well. The legs have a tendency to pop off during transformation, and the transformation itself is just seen as very frustrating for some people, especially when transforming the legs. Not helped by the fact that they like to pop off. So, there were some QC misses with this thing, big time. If those had been tweaked, and his tolerances adjusted and all that, he would have been an absolutely stellar figure in every way. But The reality is, it has some issues. So it definitely works better as a display piece than an action figure, kind of like RC. He does come with a lot of accessories, which is very, very cool. Got detachable weapons on his legs, his shoulders. He's got these wing pieces here. He's got this big old cannon. He's got this missile launcher thing. Which, that reminds me, they reworked his bird mode to where you can have his missile launcher on his back instead of his like underbelly, which just looks a lot better. However, you can still put it under his belly if you want to get that more authentic look. So there, it's a win-win, right? You can either have kind of the updated look, which seems a little more less anatomically odd, or you can go with the classic excited bird mode. We'll just leave it at that. So he does come with a lot. However, I do think it is asking a lot, and it is a little wonky that you do have to buy a separate Micromaster 4-pack just to get his Power Master partners. You know, to me, I don't know. I don't know all the economics of it. I don't know if you could have included these and $50 still would have been fair in today's market. But it doesn't feel good. You know? It's kind of like having to buy the Centurion drone pack to get Optimus's roller finally. It's just not a great feeling, despite the possible economic realities that might prevent you from getting a more complete figure in the first place. So I don't know. I really like Double Dealer. I can get past his QC issues, but I know it ruins it for a lot of people, so he's a bit of a mixed bag. Okay, and now for my thoughts on the wave in its entirety. Overall, it's a very solid wave. I found the Micromasters to be a bit more exciting than the first wave, especially the Astro Squad. They're just really cool. The Battle Masters also are very, very nice. Litherfang, I think, was a very well-designed little ramp-style Battle Master. Rung, I already had from Siege, but if this is your first time picking him up, he is a very solid little toy and a great homage to a very influential character. Well, I guess influential if you read the comics anyway. Our deluxes overall were well done. The new Datsun mold, I think, is just absolute perfection. Airwave is a very cool, very original looking little bot. The Alicon, overall, a really awesome toy if you can get past the arm kibble. RC, despite her flaws, is a very dynamic looking figure. She does really well for screen accuracy, and if you can get over the parts forming and just kind of ignore the removable backpack, then she looks really cool. Snapdragon, again, a lot of people didn't like him. I thought he was good. I thought he was better than Ape Face, and I thought his alt modes, especially the jet mode, were very solid. And then Double Dealer here is a classic example of getting an A for effort, but like a D for execution, because again, the QC issues on him make the toy very hard to enjoy. However, the design itself is fantastic, and again, just a really stellar update to the original concept. Now, this wave is unfortunately a bit skimpier than Wave 1. You only get one new Voyager because Snapdragon came in a case with a repacked Starscream from Wave 1. And then Double Dealer is the only new leader in the wave because he comes with a repack of Optimus from Wave 1. So you are getting a lot less here. Though you did wait a lot longer to get this wave. Joke's on us, I guess. So is there anything I would change about this? From a personal standpoint, I already got Rung and Siege, so I would have preferred to get just another new Battle Master. However, I do recognize the reality of distribution, and a lot of people are actually very happy to get him. So that's purely my preference. The deluxes, we got a full set of 4, which I would consider, a stacked wave. Sometimes you get waves of 5, but not often. And again, all fairly solid. Definitely would have loved to have 2 new Voyager molds. In fact, the Voyager class Quintesson was originally supposed to ship in this wave, but got pushed back to 3. And then the leader. Yep, I really would have loved a second leader in this wave too. In fact, this is the 3rd and final leader we're getting in Earthrise. That's it. We only get 3. Now, this isn't very unusual. Siege did get 4, but that 4th one was just Earthrise Astro Train brought forward to flesh out the line. So, when you borrow from Peter to pay Paul, it's got to come out somewhere. So So they recycled Astro Train and Earthrise, so we just get 3. And really only 2 new leaders. Very disappointing to me. Hasbro really seems to be shying away from the larger size classes for, I imagine, economic reasons. Which, it kills me because there's so many large characters that have yet to get a nice modern update. Double Dealer, I love that they pulled this guy from obscurity and brought him forward. Again, his last toy effort for Thrilling 30 was very lackluster. So it was nice to finally get a decent update for the guy. But I would be lying if I said I felt that this wave was a full wave. It just seems very lacking. And it's a problem I imagine isn't going to get better anytime soon. If anything, it might even get worse, which I think you're going to see my retrospectives get a lot smaller and a lot shorter because Hasbro really seems to be reeling it in with how many new figures they put out each year. I mean, heck, they're repackaging Earthrise Prime and Kingdom, so gives you an idea how many new Kingdom figures we're probably going to get. But for what this wave is and what comes in it, it was really fun. There were some QC issues, some questionable design choices along the way, but I very much enjoyed it. This wave, I felt, was Earthrise really hitting its stride and standing out as something a little more unique from Siege. And it's got me looking forward to completing Wave 3, which some of it I already have because of the wonky distribution. I had some of Wave 3 before the Wave 2 Deluxes came out, so yeah, it's kind of weird how I'm jumping back and forth across the timeline here. But overall, very solid wave. It brought us one of the best Deluxe class molds I've seen in a long time. And finally brought us some Quintesson characters, which will get topped off by the Wave 3 Quintesson Judge. And then really rounded out if you manage to pick up that Pit of Judgment. And just overall, I'm satisfied with this wave, as short as it was, and as long as it took to get to us. But of course, that is simply how I feel. Now, as I mentioned, the real question is, what do you all think of Earthrise Wave 2? Did it meet your expectations? Did it fall short? Did it exceed them? Any and all feedback is always welcome in the comments section. If you enjoyed this little retrospective, make sure to toss it a like. Let YouTube know you want to see more stuff like this. If you do want to see more like this, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you always get a heads up when I post something new. And thank you for joining me for this look at the long-awaited Transformers War for Cybertron Earthrise Wave 2 assortment. And with all that said, I will see you next time.